All right. It's great to be here. Have been a big fan of this meetup for a long time, and have always hoped to be on this stage at some point. So I'm excited to be here talking about Crossbeam, which is a partner ecosystem platform. So that phrase may sound relatively new because as a category of software, it is participating in the enterprise world only very recently with the growth in the API economy and the increasing number of companies that are interconnected with each other through technology partnerships. And in past roles at past companies, I very often would run into issues when dealing with partners answering what seemed like really, really simple questions. Questions like, how many customers do we have in common and who are they? Are my sales reps currently selling to any of the same companies that your sales reps are selling to? And the reason it's really hard to answer these questions is because you can't draw a Venn diagram of my data and your data unless one of us has all of the data. And that's a really hard data problem to solve unless you have something that sits in the middle. Something that you could almost think of as an escrow service for data that would allow companies that are collaborating with each other to actually find intersections in their data sets that could then inform go-to-market actions and allow them to turn their technology partnerships into an actual go-to-market function where they can close more deals and win and keep more business together. And that's really what Crossbeam is. Background on the company, we're based in Philly, although we have some awesome investors up here in New York, including First Mark Capital. We are about 19 team members today. The company's been around for about a year and a half, but we actually launched almost a month ago, or I'm sorry, about a year ago today. Back last January. So in addition to some really great folks that are on board, we've been able to get support from a few really important strategic investors, some of the big CRM players, so HubSpot Ventures, Salesforce Ventures, and of course Slack Fund is also participating in our venture round. So what actually happens when you're inside of Crossbeam? I'll give you a demo, but to really briefly describe it, what you're doing is connecting your CRM system to Crossbeam as a platform and then creating these things called populations that are basically mapping to stages in your sales funnel. So your prospects, your qualified opportunities, and your customers. And then you partner up. It's kind of like LinkedIn for data. And with the companies that you are partnered with, you get the ability to set up these very fine-grained, tightly controlled data sharing rules that say, we want to identify the overlaps when certain conditions are met in the data, and we may even want to actually reveal who's inside of these overlaps if certain rules are met. And that ends up being the jumping off point for all of these amazing ways that you can go to market. That include things like co-selling, helping source new leads that you may not have had access to unless your partners were introducing you or helping you get into those accounts, figuring out which tech integration to build next because you know which other companies you have the highest amount of customer overlap with, prioritizing the partners you work with, and the age-old practice of account mapping, which is getting your sales reps connected to the right sales reps at your partner companies so that they can work together without a nightmare of figuring out who needs to talk to whom in order to win business together. We've got some stellar customers. You can see case studies on our website. One of my favorite is Zendesk. We just released a case study with them recently where they're basically saying if you want to partner with Zendesk, Crossbeam is going to be a requirement. It's ground zero. And this is really the kind of strategy that we're taking around these large B2B, typically SaaS, but sometimes just broadly technology companies where if Crossbeam can become the way in which they engage in a go-to-market capacity with their tech partners, then there's a lot of value that we can add there. So with that said, let me hop over into the platform and show you exactly what it looks like and how it works. So this is Crossbeam. The best way to understand Crossbeam is just to really briefly walk you through that onboarding process that I just talked about. So when you initially connect to Crossbeam, what you're doing is connecting your CRM or system of record, basically whatever the source of truth is around who's in your sales pipeline and who's a customer. For most of our customers, that's Salesforce. For some, it's HubSpot. For others, you can pull from different data sources. Some folks upload CSVs. But the great thing is that we actually are able to go in to those systems of record and pull in not just the base objects, but any custom objects, custom fields, other properties or identifying features that exist on your data that might help you identify who's in those stages or how you might want to set up rules around when and how you collaborate with other folks. Once that's connected, you go in and build these populations. Again, these are most often mapping to stages in your sales funnel, but this is almost like a Salesforce report builder. So you can build some default ones that are the simplest, but you can also go into this really advanced custom builder and set up very specific rules and mappings that allow you to keep that population fresh and current. And what we're doing in the background is constantly syncing with Salesforce or your CRM so that you know that who's in that population is accurate. And then once you've got your population set up and your partner has their population set up, you have abstracted away all of the mess and the dirty data from the CRM world. If I'm on Salesforce and my partner's on HubSpot and a third partner uploaded CSVs, it doesn't matter because I have a customer's population, they have a leads population, they have a prospects population, and we are going to go in, partner up, and basically go and look at what the overlap is showing us. So in this demo, we are Dunder Mifflin, and we've got partners like Vance Refrigeration, Sabre, Michael Scott Paper Company. So if we drill down into Vance Refrigeration here, we can see, just by virtue of having partnered, we can basically view the matrix of all of our populations versus all of theirs, and these high-level overlap statistics about where the overlap is. Now note at this point, absolutely no raw data is shared. You have no idea who the actual accounts are that are overlapping, but you can gain insights like 577 of my leads are already monthly subscribers of Vance Refrigeration. This might be a really great opportunity for a cross-selling or co-selling motion, a reason for us to go and sponsor their event or work closely in tandem with their sales team to drive these deals forward. And that's when you would maybe set up a data sharing rule or request a data share where you would basically draw the Venn diagram and say, I'm comfortable whenever my active clients overlap with Vance Refrigeration's monthly subscribers, letting them know some things. And that may be something as advanced as who the account is and some deeper data about our relationship with them. But more often than not, it's a lighter touch. And you do something like, I'm going to let them know who the rep is on my team that owns this deal. So that when the overlap happens, I'm not really telling them anything about the nature of the relationship, so much as who they can get in touch with on my team to collaborate. And that's the foot in the door that later leads to these bigger sales motions. So once all that's set up and you've got your ecosystem going and your data sharing rules going, that's when it starts to get really exciting because you can generate these highly detailed reports where you're actually drawing these Venn diagrams in a very specific way, where you want to say, for example, I want to know when my active clients overlap with Michael Scott Paper Company's Northwest accounts and Sabre's paying clients and Vance Refrigeration's monthly subscribers. And you can actually run that in real time, see who's at the intersection of those, and even filter it down further. So if you want to create a report that's just for your sales rep, Andy Bernard, then you can run that report, filter it down even more, and then create alerts and notifications in Slack through email so that anytime a new overlap exists, Andy Bernard's getting an email and they're jumping off into that collaborative co-selling motion. Doing this allows you to scale these partnership collaborations in a really large, meaningful way and create these collaborations that are actually measurable, attributable, and can allow, at long last, the partner organization to actually point to direct revenue that they've been influential on and open up a whole new set of motions for that team. So that's Crossbeam at the core, and I am happy to take any questions online or off. My contact info is here. Thanks.
So, of course, my HubSpot and Salesforce is perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
So like, I can't even get within my own company, HubSpot and Salesforce, to talk to you because the mapping is a train wreck.
Yeah.
So how do you work that out across organizations?
Yeah, so this is where, sure, so just to repeat the question, basically everyone's data is a nightmare. How on earth do you solve the n-squared version of that problem? Like my nightmare and your nightmare need to collide with each other, which is a totally valid question. Here's the nice thing about the way these population definitions work, which is they actually map really close to, and we actually have some modules that can automatically pull in, for example, in Salesforce reports, where the high-level broad strokes like all of my leads is one thing, but when you want to define something like who is an active customer of mine, or who is someone that is a deal that is in my real sales pipeline right at this moment. These are actually reports that are being used to run your business. Like whether or not your sales team hits its quota, and if you are mapping to a target at the end of the quarter, you better believe that those reps are, even if it's 1% of your records, those are the records that matter the most. They matter the most to these motions, and they're kept very much tightly controlled as long as you know how to identify which ones they are. So what we're able to do is look at the Salesforce reports that exist that say who's an active qualified opportunity going on this quarter, who is a lead that our SDR team is going after, who's an actual customer that is owned by someone on our account management team. And we rely on and basically inherit that logic to make sure that we're taking the rat's nest of data that exists and getting that filtered down to just the things that are real and actionable inside your org. And with over 100 companies onboarded, it really has proven to be a very solved problem with folks that are doing that work. Great question. Sure, yeah.
So it seems like you're mostly talking about kind of B2B use cases where you're selling into other businesses. Have you thought at all about kind of what this looks like with, like, say, customer loyalty programs on the B2C side, and how you would go about kind of merging identity when we're talking about kind of disparate identifiers across companies?
Yeah, a great question. So just to repeat the question, a lot of this demo is very B2B oriented. It's about an individual rep selling to an individual company. What's the B2C model look like, and how do you solve for distinct kind of profiles and identities across different companies? So the matching algorithm stuff is kind of its own exciting topic, which is how do you avoid those false positives because they're really costly, because they might cause data to be exposed that you don't want, but also avoid false negatives because every single match is an atomic unit of value. We do a lot of really cool stuff with that. There's a lot of cool roadmap stuff around machine learning to make sure that like a match is a match. But more generally in the B2C space, what's exciting about this is you may not want to say, okay, I just want to know on a deal by deal, on a customer by customer basis, who are our overlapping customers. If you and another, for example, like a mobile game, have 1 million users, knowing the 100,000 that overlap is less exciting than knowing analytics and statistics about the behaviors of those overlapping 100,000. So being able to identify that someone that's in the intersection has a twice as large customer lifetime value or a half as large customer lifetime value than someone that sits outside of the intersection, that's actionable. That's something that you can use to track and map increasing the intersection by kind of cross-pollinating your user bases. And when we get into B2C, it tends to just sit higher in the funnel. The B2B stuff is very kind of salesy hand-to-hand combat. The B2C stuff usually sits inside the marketing organization, but both are super relevant use cases. Yeah?
Yeah. I'm in business development, so I think this is a fantastic idea.
Thank you.
Are there engagement rates that are built in with, let's say, and integrated with HubSpot and Salesforce for your platform to look at maybe engagement when you bring in a certain partner or using different partners who attract a certain decision maker? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, great. So the question is, do we have integrations basically back to HubSpot and Salesforce so that you can then be aware of this context when you're tracking the success of your programs? The short answer is yes. So we have this awesome Salesforce integration where you can actually, I should have included a screenshot here, you can go in at the account level, and if there's any enriched data that exists for this record as a result of your partnerships in Crossbeam, your reps and other folks in Salesforce can actually click to retrieve that data. And what you're really doing is just adding dimensionality to the data. So if you think about it from an analytics or a retroactively saying, how has my partner ecosystem influenced my company's performance last quarter? All of a sudden you have all these amazing new dimensions. What % of my deals were with companies that already had a relationship with one of our premier partners? What did that do to ACV? What did it do to the amount of time until the deal closed? Getting all of those sites, differentiating between which partners and seeing where that performance is better or worse, all on the table and kind of within the scope of vision for what we're up to here. One more. Or I'll just stand here and awkwardly stare at you all. Yes, all right.
Without disclosing names, share a success story.
Yeah, I'm happy to disclose names. I've never there before. I will say, so there's definitely verticals where we've got these really awesome beachheads. So we have, I would say that the kind of BI and data analytics space is a really big successful one where we have a big pocket of companies. And I think the reason that it's been so successful there is because you really have these cases where many companies layer on top of each other to create like a best-in-class stack. Like if you want to have a best-in-class business intelligence setup in your company right now, you need a data warehouse. Shout out to Amazon Redshift. You need a ETL platform that is going to go and extract data from all your various tools and drop it in that warehouse. You need very often like a data modeling layer where you're going to do some data cleansing and data definitions. And then you need the Tableau or Looker layer that is kind of your dashboards and analytics. It's really rare that someone's buying one of these and doesn't either have or is also buying the others. So very, very often these companies' sales teams are really, really closely working with each other. They know when these products are being cross-sold. They're constantly exchanging deals, but there's no mechanism for surfacing that stuff early in the process until Crossbeam came along. And a lot of our early traction has been in that area where you get the fact that the API economy has blown apart the BI stack, where it used to be these big monolithic tools, and now it's like 5 or 6 things you stack together, means there's hundreds of companies that all need to do this motion in order to get their products installed and sold and serviced. And that's exactly the kind of use case where we come in. Cool, I think that's it. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bob. We're going to switch gears to the panel.